unfortunately, the Secretary of State has abused the financial services industry, and it is one of the bright stars in this state. We're number 2 behind New York, and we have a much lower operating cost of living here, and this is an industry we need to foster. What I think, up until this present Secretary of State, the past Secretary of States had a group, an informal committee that each of the major firms had a representative on. And when there was a problem, they would run, the Secretary of State would run regulations by them and get their input. One of the biggest assets of the financial firms are people, and every once in a while people get off of the reservation and they have to be brought back. But you don't pick out the firms and crucify them. You correct the problems that you've got. And I think if you have the advice these firms want high quality, they want a high quality reputation. And we need, as we institute regulations or have problems, we need to correct that. Let them run it by them, see what it's going to do to the industry, so that you've got kind of a backdrop before you institute regulation. This Secretary of State shut down an industry, went in and made big national news with it during her Senate campaign, and that was a 3-month. That's an appointment that had been on the books for 3 months. And it sounded like it was she has really punished this industry beyond words, and Scott's exactly right. It's just a shakedown. One group told me that, it's $120,000 a year. They knew they didn't know how she's going to get it. That was their portion. So I think it's an industry that we can encourage and foster. We need to protect investors, but there's ways to do it without crushing the industry.
All right. We're going to go into closing segments now. We started with you, so we're going to start with you at the end. You guys are all the members of the state legislature, and you're all guys here on stage. What sets you apart from the other guys on stage? That's what I want you to keep in mind in your closing segments, so set yourself.
Well, I think I bring a broad base of experience. I've been a farmer. We've had a small business. In 1979, MFA Incorporated, which is the largest ag input cooperative in the country, or in the state of Missouri, had financial problems, virtually bankrupt. I was elected to that board, was chairman for 8 years, on that board for 16. And when I left, it had the highest return on assets of any cooperative in the country. So I've got a lot of experience in focusing and refocusing companies. I think that I've been in the Senate, and I think with that I've got kind of a background that prepares me well for this job. I have had 40 years of experience with the Secretary of State's office, not from the bureaucratic side, but from the consumer side. Every business I've been in, whether it was an antique business or the tiling company or MFA Incorporated, is all, and the Senate is consumer based and consumer service, and I think I've been well prepared for that. I support photo ID. I support clear ballot language. I support making it easy for businesses to do business here in the state of Missouri. And my experience is in finding choke points and eliminating those choke points and making things more efficient. So I think I bring a broad base of experience and look forward to serving the state of Missouri. I truly enjoy serving constituents, and I would like to continue that for the next 4 years.
Scott.
I think the thing that really sets me apart is that I'm a conservative that gets results. So you got to judge people on what kind of results they've gotten throughout, whatever job or career it is you're looking at. If you go to my website, rootformissouri.com, there's a whole page that just is results, and you can click on whatever issue, whether it's Obamacare. We were the senator that passed that Proposition C, the Healthcare Freedom Act, and put it on the ballot so you guys can vote to reject that mandate. Whether or not it's protecting the sanctity of life, we've passed numerous things of legislation to protect the unborn. Whether it is, various things like illegal immigration laws. We wrote the illegal immigration laws here in the state. So if you go back and you look at all the different things that conservatives and people in this room really are concerned about, we have a track record of getting results on those issues. Then when you look at the results side of the private sector, As I said, I owned a college prep company. That was a small business. I found out real quick the front door to doing business in this state is the Secretary of State's office because it governs all the business registration. Then I had to open a securities firm. I had my own brokerage. I understand the securities industry. I also had a own mortgage company. So every time I wanted to expand or open a new business so I could hire more people, you have to go to the Secretary of State's office and deal with the business registration. So I have a background in the securities laws because that's what it governs, the business registration, and it also governs the elections. I ran 10 elections in the last 8 years and won them all. I went toe-to-toe with the Democrat National Committee who flew in John Edwards to campaign against me in my 2006 state Senate race. I saw what they tried to do on funny things in the election. We know how to identify voter fraud. So I have results from the private sector. I have results from being in the legislature on all the issues that everyone in this room and conservatives care about.
Shane Schiller.
Absolutely. I think it's important that you have a candidate with experience and someone who understands what it is to be in the business environment. And for example, I did have the opportunity to work in the Secretary of State's office when Secretary Maplin was there, so I understand the office very well, I understand each area. And one of the areas that I was able to work in the private sector was I worked for the Home Builder Association. One of my main roles there when I worked there was to meet with the people who set the rules and regulations that increase the cost on building your home or remodeling your home. And all too often you see people who may be well-intentioned, but those new regulations they put on the home building would prevent a person from being able to build that home as they best see fit. And so one of the areas that a lot of folks don't know about in the Secretary of State's office is administrative rulemaking. And when any law is passed, whether it's by the legislature or by citizen initiative or even constitutional amendment, you have what's called the rulemaking process. And one of the things that we need to do for the folks who own business, I'm a kid who grew up in small town America, worked in a number of restaurants, worked in a shoe store growing up. I remember watching those owners, especially after minimum wage was first passed when I got my job, they increased to it back in the 80s. And I'll never forget the restaurant owner taking that menu out and increasing all the prices on that menu. And understand that when you pass one more regulation on to the business sector, that cost is going to be passed on to the consumer. And so we need to make sure that when the rules and regulations are being written to follow out the intent of the legislation, whether passed by the citizens or passed by the legislature, that we are protecting citizens across the state to make sure there are no unintended consequences, make sure they're not going beyond the constitutional the scope of the Missouri Constitution, but also the legislation is written by the legislature. And all too often right now, we know Secretary Carnahan has been a rubber stamp to all the new rules and regulations that have been written. And so I think you need to have someone who's going to be a watchdog to make sure that we protect citizens, whether you're a business owner, whether you're trying to make sure you put bread on your table, that we're doing everything we can to protect you. And so I want to be able to take the experience that I've had in the Secretary of State's office, but also the experience I've had growing up, working in small town America, working to make sure that people are able to have that right of home ownership, and make sure that as Secretary of State that we are protecting you, not only when you go to vote, but also when you go to register your business. One quick thing I want to mention is that right now there are 58 different sections which you may have to register your business under. We want to make sure we simplify that. Let's reduce that between 5 to 10, so when somebody goes to register their business, they don't have to worry about hiring an attorney to be able to open that business. Because y'all remember Joe the plumber? Remember that conversation? A lot of folks focus on the redistribution of the wealth. But I think the sadder part of the conversation with Joe the plumber was when he said, I can't open a business because there's too many regulations. There's too many taxes. And so when I think about my family and the future that Mindy and I have for our children, for Emma, Dorothy, and Johnny that I mentioned earlier, I want to make sure that they're able to embrace an opportunity to be able to get the best education they can, but then after that education, that they have the environment to be able to go into where they're able to see the best of their dreams realized, because we haven't done anything to prohibit that. Rather, we've been able to make sure that they go forward. So, thank you.
Thank you all. In about 15 minutes,